A teacher is run over by an American's car, and the only person who thinks to help is a principal who wasn't even at school that day. What secret lies behind this mysterious accident? Hello, friends. You're listening to The School Principal, Part 10, written by Jalal Al-e Ahmad.
The first snow was still on the ground when one evening the fourth grade teacher was run over by a passenger car. Like every afternoon, I wasn't at the school. It was around dusk when the old school janitor came to our door with the news. As I ran to get my clothes, I could hear him explaining the situation to my wife. He'd left school in the afternoon, like every day, and was walking with another teacher when a car hit him. The car belonged to one of the Americans who had recently rented a house in the area to bring running water and electricity to the place. After we left the house, he told me the rest. Apparently, the guy was driving himself, then he panicked and fled. The kids took the news back to the school, and by the time the janitor and his wife got there, the crowd and the police had already put him in a car and sent him to the hospital. But judging by the blood on the asphalt and the circle of stones they'd set up around it, surely only his corpse made it to the hospital. When I got to the bus stop, I saw it was a turtle of a car. I dismissed the janitor and jumped into a taxi. First, I went to the new police station that had been opened at the request of the local association. It was newly established near the school. And that was that! The officer on duty was the same policeman who had come to the school and had his own son enrolled there. Pleasantries, small talk, and he was informed about the case file. But the file didn't explicitly state who the driver had been. The patrol officer's report, fingerprints, the station's logbook number, and all related matters were there, but no one knew what had ultimately happened to our fourth grade teacher. The duty officer only knew that in such cases, according to administrative procedure, they first go to the main police station, then the traffic accidents department, and then the hospital. If I hadn't been an acquaintance, the duty officer certainly wouldn't have even let me glance sideways at the file. I felt I was gradually becoming known among the locals, and this feeling made me laugh, and I set off in the same taxi. Following that administrative procedure, and by 8 o'clock I was at the hospital door. Even if he had been healthy, going through this administrative procedure from 4:30 until that time of night would have surely done something to him, just as something was happening to me. On the hospital door was written, "Entry forbidden after 7 p.m., and the door was very large and smelled like a mortuary. I knocked. From behind the door, someone issued this same verse. I saw it was useless and that I needed to leverage something, some power, some authority, some stature, something. I made my voice thick and said, I wanted to say I am the school principal, but I immediately regretted it. The guy would probably have said, what dog is a school principal? Whatever it was, the doorman was such a big door, and he wasn't the sergeant of a newly established local police station to mince words with the principal of his neighborhood school. So with a slight pause and great pomp, I finished my sentence like this. I am an inspector from the Ministry of Culture. The bolt made a sound, and the door opened. I had changed my expression to match my voice. The door opened wider. The guy greeted me with his eyes and pulled his army-style smock aside. I didn't see anything else about him. I went in and asked with the same voice. That schoolteacher who had the accident, he read it to the end, called someone, and sent them with me to such and such floor, such and such room. 5 or 6 sparse, solitary pine trees were visible in the darkness, but none of them gave off a scent of sap. Only the smell of camphor was in the air, very faint. From the courtyard to a corridor, and again to another courtyard half covered in snow. And I was running so fast that the guy behind me was huffing and puffing. I couldn't tell if he was thin or fat. I mean, I didn't see, but he was huffing and puffing. I was enjoying that I had made one of these phlegmatic, this too shall pass types run. First floor, second, and fourth. 4 steps at a time. The corridor was dark and full of peculiar smells, and the clock on the wall was stuck ticking at 8:15. Tick, tock. And the nails in my shoes on the corridor's ribbed carpet answered back. Click, clack. I had found the harshness of an officer going to someone's house to arrest them. I was ready to slap the first person who appeared in front of me and said no. I was using everything to create harshness. Even in my mind, I cursed that night and that meeting and that chanting of Aman Yujib and that feeling of revulsion. Others were building houses to rent them out for dollars, and my fourth grade teacher gets run over by their rented car, and I, at that time of night, have to go looking for some unknown wretch that I have no hand in. In those few moments I stood waiting under the clock for the guide, these thoughts passed through my mind. I forced these thoughts through my mind until the guy arrived. Huffing and puffing, he pointed to a door. I pushed it and went in. The smell was stronger and the darkness greater. It was a hall full of beds and the squeak of shoes and someone snoring. 4 people were standing around one bed. It had to be him. When I reached the foot of the bed, I felt all that harshness, pretense, and majesty I had summoned to my aid melted and ran down my face. I had run all the way. I was out of breath and my legs were shaking, and this was my 4th grade school teacher. Lying there heavy, with a bulging stomach, as if they had put his director general's physique lengthwise through a wringer. He seemed much shorter than when he was standing. His face and chest were visible from under the dirty shroud. Under the shroud, where his right leg should have been, it was bulging, the size of a cushion. They had just washed the blood from his face, which was bruised exactly the color of slap marks on children's faces. When he saw me, he smiled. And what a smile! Or maybe he wanted to say that a school whose principal isn't on duty in the afternoons should end up like this. But he couldn't speak. They had tied his chin with a handkerchief, just like they tie a dead man's chin. But the laugh was on his face, and he wasn't on a mortuary bed either. A laugh that had dried instead of blood spots on his face, exactly like pond water that shivers slowly, slowly in the first cold of autumn. Then it wrinkles, then freezes. The laugh on his face just shivered and shivered and shivered until it froze. "Why did you have to get into an accident?" As if I had asked him the question. But when I saw he couldn't speak, and instead of any answer he just had that frozen laugh on his face, I stood in for him and answered myself. "Why? Why did you drag this director general's physique around here and there until they hit you? Until they ran you over? Didn't you know a teacher isn't allowed to be so well-built? Why were you so eye-catching? You even filled the alleyway. You were an obstruction. Didn't you know that the street and traffic guides and civilization and asphalt are all for those who tread the world under the wheels of cars made in their own country? Why did you have to get into an accident?" I was saying these things to him with such admonishment and reproach that I'm not at all sure I didn't say them out loud to myself. And suddenly it hit me. You didn't give him the evil eye, did you? And then, you idiot! Damn you. After 30-some years of life, you've suddenly become superstitious. And such disgust with myself came over me that I wanted to curse someone, to hit someone. That's when my eyes fell on the duty doctor. "A plague on this country's morticians. Blood has been draining from this man since 4 o'clock. Weren't you ashamed?" Then a hand settled on my shoulder and quieted my shouting. I turned around. It was his father. With the same director general's physique and the same face, half of that same apple but more burnt and withered, as if they had planted his white beard, grain by grain, into his sunburned face. He was laughing, too. His hat was in his hand, and he didn't know where to put it. 2 other men were with him, all looking rustic, all well-built and sturdy. I memorized them, how strapping they all were. Those 2 were his sons, or his nephews, or other relatives. And just as I was beginning to bloom with pride, I heard, incredulously, "Who might this gentleman be?" This was said by the same duty doctor, and I mounted my high horse again. "You call me a gentleman? I'm nobody. A fucking Mr. Principal. And this is my teacher. A morsel for your dissection hall." Suddenly, reason shouted, "Shut up, boy!" And I shut up. A lump was in my throat. I wanted him to say one more word, to make a sarcastic remark, a smile, the slightest jab. I have never been able to swear to any doctor's skill until now, but I am certain he knew at least a little something about psychology. He came forward, friendly-like. He extended his hand, which I shook with reluctance. Then he pointed to a large glass bottle that was hung inverted above the bed, and made me understand that this was how they were feeding him, and that they had taken x-rays, and if the wounds weren't infected by tomorrow morning, they would set them and put on a cast. Then another one arrived, stethoscope in hand, white-coated and perfumed. With movements like movie stars, he greeted me. His voice shook something loose deep in my memory, but there was no need for curiosity. He was a student from I don't know how many years ago. He introduced himself, Dr. So-and-so.
What times? You've sown every bit of your being like a speck of daily bread with some nonsense from your bag of nonsense into some soil, and now it has sprouted. Have you got eyes, you fool? Can't you see it bears no trace of you? Can you see the color of film studio factories on his forehead and in his affectations and the way he wraps the stethoscope tube around his hand? You had imagined, you had comforted yourself. Granted, your accounting was correct. Tell me, now, after 10 years, is there anything left in you to pour out, to scatter? Huh? Don't you think that now, like this wrenched corpse, you only have the stain of a bitter smile on your face and you've fallen into the hands of these modern fledglings? The one lying on this bed is you. For 10 long years from the staircase of your life's hours and minutes, one has climbed up every moment and you only still carry the fatigue of this burden. This trendy fledgling and the other fledglings you don't know have all hatched from eggs that were once the walls of your youth and are now broken and empty. Among these broken walls, not a single feather remains from any of them. And this one? Who didn't even have the time? And before he could carve out some little comfort from this ridiculous profession, he was crushed under the wheels of civilization. With this stature, and with that wit that was the pride of the school. I took his hand and pulled him aside, and into his ear I gave him and his colleague and his profession every curse and insult I knew, as if I wanted to put in a good word for my 4th grade teacher. Then I nodded to the father and fled. When I came out of the door, it was the courtyard and rainy air. I slowed my pace and entrusted what I had inhaled of medicine, pain, and regret to the damp rain. I tried not to be sentimental. And as I came out of the large gate, I was thinking, what's it to you anyway? Why did you even come? What could you have done? Did you want to satisfy your curiosity or play at being humanitarian or pretend to be a dutiful principal who cares for his colleagues? And finally, I reached this conclusion. Prey has fallen into the hands of the police station and courthouse desk jockeys, and you can neither snatch this prey from their hands nor do anything else. And I was getting into a taxi to go home when it suddenly occurred to me, at the very least, why didn't you ask what happened to him? I wanted to turn back, but the image of the 4th grade teacher's long, blue, swollen body on the bed was there, and I saw that I couldn't. I was ashamed or afraid of him or of that hatched fledgling, or of his father or of the smiles they were all giving. Why weren't you at the school? I was awake until 2 o'clock that night, and the next day I wrote a detailed report signed by the school principal with testimony from all the teachers, for the Department of Education and the local police station, and then running around at the insurance office arranging for a budget of 9 tomans a day for his hospital expenses. And in the afternoon, after a long time, I went to the school, dismissed the classes, and sent the teachers and the 6th grade kids to visit him, with a bouquet and all that. And for an hour, I walked alone in the school, free from the chatter of lessons and education, and fantasized. And the next morning, his father came with greetings and inquiries and said that one arm and one leg were broken and there was some internal bleeding in the brain, and that people had come from the American guy's side to visit him with promises that when he got better, they'd hire him in Point 4. And with a wordless language, he made me understand that I had submitted the report for nothing, and now that it was submitted, I shouldn't pursue it. And mutual satisfaction, and the bowl being hotter than the hot soup, and all that talk. Damn this country.
The next part of this story will be uploaded tomorrow. What you will hear in the next episode: the strange tale of the sugar loaves that turned a school principal into a detective.